Previously, I'd ridden probably the best adventure ride of my life, the Mount Samuel track. Now it was time to say goodbye to Blinman and head off to Arkaroola. My original plan was to actually spend a day riding at Warraweena Conservation Park doing the Mount Gill track, but I lost that day due to rain, so I had to make another plan. So I decided I wanted to ride Glass Gorge Rd one more time on my way out because there was an amazing lookout I wanted to stop at. Then it was up through Beltana, Copley and off to Arkaroola. But I wasn't going the main road, I was going to take a very remote road. The reason why I wanted to ride Glass Gorge Rd one more time was because the lighting was just perfect. The cloud cover, the time of the day, it was perfect for a ride down there. And I wanted to stop at the lookout down Glass Gorge Rd and just see if I could get a perfect shot of this incredible view. I spotted the turn off to the lookout and I rode up there with anticipation, really hoping that the lighting was going to be right and just give me the shot that I was looking for. The clouds had created a sort of mottled lighting on the hills, and that was really what I was looking for. So I stopped, got the drone up and just took a couple of really lovely shots. Then I headed off to Arkaroola. This next part of the ride, it's not overly scenic. It's just a lot of wide open space, a lot of dirt, gravel, rocky roads. But it was still quite enjoyable to actually just ride in this nothingness, if that makes sense. So the Gammon Ranges Road, it's pretty flat and it's pretty open and it's reasonably boring to ride. So I decided that I was going to use this opportunity to really try out my 360-degree camera. I'd had the camera for a while and I'd never really given it a fair go. So I had made myself a promise that on this trip, I was going to really see if I could get, make that 360 camera work. And I tried different shots, but largely, to be honest, I don't like the 360 camera. I think it's more gimmicky and novelty, and it's actually not sort of very adventure riding friendly. So I am not going to be taking that 360 camera with me anymore. Finally, I approached the turnoff from the Gammon Ranges Road, and I have to confess there's a bit of anxiety there. The reason is, this was way off the main road. It was about a 75-kilometre track and it was extremely remote. But it didn't take long for any anxiety I had just to totally disappear. And I really started enjoying the ride, and I kind of enjoyed the solitude of it, and I enjoyed the remoteness of the ride. The scenery was beautiful, the colours were gorgeous, and I just really got into it. The riding was largely pretty fast, open trails. Towards the end, as I approached the national park, it sort of got a little bit more technical, but nothing really to worry about. But it was a fun ride. I really enjoyed this leg. day 7, I wanted to ride around Arkaroola. And while the local staff weren't overly useful, I did have with me a GPX file for a ride out to Arkaroola Hot Springs. I didn't know too much about this track, but I knew that it did take me down onto the plains on the other side of the Flinders. So I head off without a whole lot of expectations, but pretty quickly I was really pleasantly surprised. The first thing I noticed was just the colour difference of the hills and the mountains. It was much more of a bright red compared to the southern part of the Flinders Ranges. And it was stunning. It was really, really beautiful riding. It was quite rugged countryside, but I really enjoyed the ride. Stubbs Waterhole is definitely a highlight. It's set against this big cliff of red dirt, and it's just a classic Australian outback scene. The scenery changed again as I got out onto the edge of the plain, and the contrast of the green grass against the red dirt was really quite beautiful. There was nothing much to see at Arkaroola Hot Springs itself, but it was quite interesting just to ride along the plains looking at the Flinders Ranges from the plains themselves. I enjoyed the ride back just as much as I did the ride out, and often when you're going back on the track, you just see things that you never saw before, but it was a lot of fun to ride, and it was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And the final part of the ride, I believe it was called the Mount Jacobs track. It was just gorgeous. These incredible hills, which just gave you these 360-degree panoramas, was absolutely just beautiful. Personally, I can take or leave Arkaroola village. It is quite a sort of tourist hub. The riding around Arkaroola, I think, is not to be missed. It is really, it gives you a different view of the Flinders. My last night in Arkaroola, it rained, and that threw a spanner in the works. Originally, I planned to ride back through the remote Nuntuwarina Indigenous area, but after the rain, I didn't fancy riding out there solo and getting stuck in the bog. So I had to come up with a plan B, and I decided not to do the remote route and instead take the dirt road around to Blinman. While I was replanning, I actually decided I was going to do a run all the way down to Adelaide in one go, mainly because my boys had decided to do a surprise dinner for my wife for Mother's Day, and I wanted to get back and made it. But that meant I was doing 700 kilometres and 10 hours in one go. So this would be an interesting test to see how comfortable the 701 was for long distance touring. Strangely enough, I thought my last day was going to be the easiest ride from a technical perspective, but it actually turned out to be the sketchiest. And the reason it was sketchy is because the roads were 95% dry, but that 5% when you hit it, especially at speed, it would just clog up your wheels and the bike would just start skating across the road. I decided to explore the Glass Gorge Rd and just see what that was going to be like. Unfortunately, that's where I came unstuck. I hit a particularly deep, boggy bit of mud, and before I knew it, the bike just slipped over at low speed. I was really frustrated that I dropped the bike on the last day, and I dropped it in thick mud. And it wasn't about getting the bike dirty. I don't mind the bike getting dirty if I'm riding it through mud, but just to drop it in mud like that, it was a bummer. So I took my time and then tried to get the bike up, but that's when I hit a problem. It was so slippery that every time I tried lifting, either I would slide or the bike would slide. So finally I took the luggage off, and that made all the difference, and I got the bike up. Unfortunately, my helmet containing the GoPro decided to roll down the hill, but I did eventually get the bike up and then started the job of cleaning the filthy mud off it. Usually on the last leg of a trip, I like to sort of reflect what I got out of that trip. And on this trip, there were three things that really struck me. Number one, by riding solo for the first time on dirt and taking an adventure on like this, I really built my confidence, and I think I grew a lot, not just as a rider, but as an individual. Number two, the Flinders were everything I'd hoped and more, and there's still some unfinished business there, so I will be back for sure. And three, I tested the 701 both on a long adventure ride, but more importantly on a very long road ride. And some people have said it's great in dirt but not that great on the road. Well, the way I've got my bike set up, I love it on road and I love it on dirt. While this is the end of my Flinders ride, I am going to publish 2 more videos. One kind of behind the scenes of just generally the logistics, the way I packed the bike, the way I set it up, etc. And the second is more aimed at videographers that want to just have a look at my camera setup and how I kind of rigged the bike for this type of video adventure.